You are Locked On Bears POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Bears postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. My name's Joe George, host of the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. We go live after every single Bears, Cubs, Bulls, and Notre Dame game. The Bears lose 6-3 on Thursday Night Football to the Seattle Seahawks. I apologize to the nation as a member of Bears fandom for what you all just had to witness. That is Bears football 101 that we have seen this season. The losing streak is up to 10 games now. They're not going to win another game this season, obviously. Starting the season 4-2, we'll end the season 4-13. Will be a disaster. We got to talk about a couple comments from Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit during the broadcast tonight that definitely caught my attention. Something for Caleb Williams and something for the coaching search this offseason. And at least the defense was better. We'll try to hit on that as well at the end of the show. But look, this game is typical Bears football this season. The offense isn't great. Or at least it's early on in the season, right? The defense was better. The offense is not good. Caleb Williams is having an up and down day, which we're going to get into here in this first segment, because I think the conversation's become too black and white, and it's more nuanced than what you're seeing with Caleb. And I think Bears fans are even struggling to be on what side of the argument they want to be on. So we're going to talk about that as well with this. But look, this game, the offense can't do anything. Caleb Williams is sacked 7 times. He's up to 67 sacks on the year. He is by far the most in the NFL. C.J. Stroud is the next closest quarterback. He's not going to break the NFL record because he's not going to get sacked 10 times next week if he plays. Not sure he's going to. We'll see about that. I'll be very curious to see about that decision versus the Green Bay Packers. But look, the offense was terrible tonight. It starts right away. The typical, 3 and out to start a football game. Run, pass. And that first throw by Caleb Williams is not great. It's not the worst throw of the day for Caleb Williams, but it is dropped by Rome Odunze. And you just kind of know we're off and running. That's what this is going to be today. Seattle, who's fighting for their lives, are against the Bears in this situation. And it's unbelievable how bad this team continues to be. Finally the defense does something. Like I said, we'll spend more time on them. But the offense just cannot compete in any way, shape, or form. Even when Caleb Williams has some good moments. I think the one that will stand out the most from this game is where he kind of leans back on his right foot, throws it sidearm to Keenan Allen towards the first down line. Keenan Allen drops it. I am pro bringing Keenan Allen back next year, but so many drops. So maybe I shouldn't be. But the offense just couldn't get anything going. DeAndre Swift continues to try to bounce things outside when there's nowhere to go. You don't see any success from the run game from him or Roschon Johnson. Cole Kmet is completely not involved in the offense again. The only way they can get DJ Moore involved is on these little bubble passes. I'm not even sure DJ Moore caught a pass more than 5 yards down the field in this game, except for that one at the very end there, the miracle play from Caleb. But besides that, DJ Moore, his role in the offense is run behind line of scrimmage and make something happen. The only positives of this game from the offense is a couple nice throws from Caleb, some well-executed screen passes, but this is just typical disaster for the Bears. And it continued, obviously, there at the very end of the game where Thomas Brown pulled a full Matt Eberflus as the head coach of this team. I think Caleb has to take some accountability for this, but Rome gets the first down. It's a good throw by Caleb Williams to Rome Odunze. Rome comes all the way back to the ball. And again, we've seen this once this season. The clock is just ticking and ticking and ticking and ticking, and they're walking up to the line of scrimmage. There's no urgency from the players, from the coaching staff. You have timeouts. You had to burn a timeout because you were going to punt it or you're going to go for it. Your left guard jumps off sides, and who is the one who's guilty of the holding penalty on the Rome Odunze touchdown pass that from Caleb Williams earlier in the game. So that's a disaster. So you back up 5 yards, then you have to burn a timeout, and then you go for it and you get it. But that sequence alone shows you that the dysfunction that was Matt Eberflus and the Bears was not contained to Matt Eberflus. And we've all known this, right? As Bears fans, we know what we've seen the last couple weeks. Things didn't magically get better with Thomas Brown when he became the head coach. Frankly, they've gotten worse. Defensively, for the most part, until tonight, they've been a disaster. Offensively, they were way better when he was in the booth than he was on the field. And some of that stuff is what's leading to, which we'll talk about in the next segment, these weird names that Al Michaels is throwing out for potential head coaches for the Chicago Bears, not even including the fact that Pete Carroll is interested in the job. But this game, just overall, it's not good. And this is where I think the conversation is going to get, it gets divisive for Bears fans about what's happening in front of them with Caleb Williams. And I think that there has been too much, it's too strong of opinions on both sides to where people are not willing to meet in the middle, which is very typical of the way sports is talked about these days. But Caleb Williams, when you look at what's going on with him, he's been sacked 67 times this year, 7 times in this game. It's hard to be a successful quarterback and say you've been sacked that many times. You're 10 away from the NFL record, rookie record. Maybe it's the NFL record overall. I'm not even sure actually at this point. But the reality is that it's week 17, and Caleb is still taking sacks that he should not be. He should not be taking some of the sacks he's taking in the game. And I'll go back. I would disagree strongly with Kirk Herbstreit on one of them, where Rome Odunze, for everyone with eyeballs can see, is going to be open when the Seahawks bring a ton of pressure. But Rome is not even turned around. He is nowhere near ready for the ball. And that to me is the bigger question of, is Caleb aware of what's happening on the defense in front of him? Is he audibling the plays? Is he allowed to audible some of these hot routes? Why is it just why is Rome Odunze not recognizing some of this stuff? And you think about what's gone on earlier in the game with Rome and Caleb, where they're still not on the same page. That's not a long-term concern. I think they will figure that stuff out. I'm a Caleb believer. But I don't think, there's both sides of this argument with the sack count, where some people are acting like everything is Caleb's fault, and then some people are acting like everything is not his fault and it's just the offensive line. Tonight's the perfect example of why the offensive line is a problem. Yes, it's terrible. Yes, but Caleb, it's really disappointing that we are this far into this first year and he still is not recognizing that he cannot do some of the things athletically that he would do at USC, escaping the pocket all the time and getting away from these pass rushers who are so much more athletic than what he was seeing in the Pac-12. It's just not feasible, some of that stuff. Not seeing the blitzes that are coming and having an option of where to go with the ball can be everyone's fault. And I think that's what it is. It's Caleb, it's the offensive line, it's the coaching staff. They're not setting him up for success, which, we know that. We know they have failed another quarterback. They showed that stupid merry-go-round graphic going back to Rex Grossman, but they talked about Fields and Trubisky, and we've all heard it 1,000 times at this point of the coach getting fired after drafting a rookie quarterback this time in season with Eberflus. But that stuff with Caleb is concerning, and it's not all the offensive line, but I want to say it's not all just on them. It's some of it is on Caleb Williams, and that's got to be a big thing he works on this offseason, just the reality of what's in front of him. The other part of Caleb that I think is really tough is people want to look at the extended play where he got to DJ Moore on 4th down, the throw to Rome Odunze that he had, the incompletion to Keenan Allen, the incredible touchdown pass that was called back to Rome Odunze, and they want to cherry pick those highlights as the reason why there's no reason to worry about Caleb this point in the season. But the counter to that, again, is airmailing throws. The pass before the interception, there was no Bears defender in sight. The fact that him and Rome Odunze are not on the same page, the fact that DJ Moore can't run a route more than 5 yards down the field for the most part because either he can't get the separation or they just can't get him the ball. And the one thing Justin Fields could do was get the ball to DJ Moore deep down the field, and that totally seems out of the bag of Caleb Williams right now. And I think the throws are a better example. The great throws are a better example of what he can be, and it's the reason why we should have hope as Bears fans because of what's to come, hopefully, with Ben Johnson. But tonight's just another example of watching Caleb play where he didn't cross the 100-yard passing yard total until there was 1 minute and 6 seconds left in the fourth quarter. It's terrible. I don't care that he has 3,000 passing yards. It's just not getting better. It's frustrating. I'll say again, I'm firmly still a believer the Bears will have a franchise quarterback when they hire a competent head coach. If they hire a competent head coach, I should say. But tonight's just another example of what I think is going to be a long offseason for Bears fans. The debate shows when you listen to them. If you, for some reason, do listen to local sports talk radio, whatever it is, you hang out with us here on the Locked On Sports Network. There is going to be very differing opinions about what has gone wrong and right with Caleb Williams, and tonight is just another perfect example of what has gone on with the Chicago Bears. Specifically, that sequence of plays there in the fourth quarter that we kind of went over already. But nearly getting the first down, jumping off sides, timeout, going for and fourth, converting, all that stuff. Like, that was like the microcosm of the Bears season for the entire world in one single possession. So another rough day for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. They lose 6-3 to the Seattle Seahawks. They lost 10 straight games in a row. Look, this game was terrible. I apologize to start the show. I will apologize again. So we're going to talk about something that happened during the game, within the broadcast. There's a couple comments that I want to address that I think are interesting, what they mean about Caleb Williams and the future of the Chicago Bears from both Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, because we'll talk about the defense in the last segment, but at least they were good. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Sports Network, on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel, here on the Locked On Bears Postcast. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitoring your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved up to a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, couple games here. Let's see. Jason here says, "Wow, this game is so extremely 2 thumbs down. Even the people at Amazon Prime are disappointed too." Yes, I would imagine they are. But this is why, number one request for Mike North, not Mike North, formerly of 670 The Score, a good friend of mine. Mike North, the man who makes the NFL playoff, just makes the NFL schedule. This is like one primetime game for the Bears next year. I don't need it every week. Like, maybe it'll be better with Ben Johnson or Joe Brady or Mike Vrabel. But like, let's bring it back a little bit. I just don't need to see the Bears on primetime a lot next year. I kind of hate the idea of having to go to my normal job at ESPN Houston and getting ragged on constantly because people are watching the Bears for the first time this year. So let's cut back on the primetime games next year while they figure it out. But what are Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit talking about? A couple things that I heard during the broadcast. We'll start with Al Michaels. Well, we got the report earlier this week that Pete Carroll was interested in being the Bears head coach. And why I think this is important for this show and like why it's kind of relevant to a post-game show is because Al and Kirk will spend hours with the Chicago Bears. They will, talk to Caleb Williams. They will talk to Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson gave the sideline reporter a list of names, which was great. I think it was all the guys I just mentioned, actually, as potential head coaching candidates for the Bears. But Al Michaels made a comment today about Bill O'Brien being a candidate for the Chicago Bears. And all of a sudden I looked on Twitter, and it just kind of took over from Bears fans in that moment. Like, what is he talking about? Like, we're trying to watch the Bears. We're trying to suffer through a Bears game in which Caleb Williams is being sacked 7 times. The offense can't move the ball. The defense shows up for the first time since Matt Eberflus is fired. And Al Michaels is taking a torch and gasoline and lighting the fan base on fire by saying Bill O'Brien is potentially a candidate for this job. Please, God, no. As I just said, I am a radio host full-time at ESPN Houston. I'm a full-time Bears fan from Chicago originally, if you don't know that. But I'm a radio host in Houston now. And the idea of Bill O'Brien, who I watched and covered, being the head coach of the Chicago Bears, I couldn't do it. That might be my tipping point. I could not believe if that would actually happen. Zach jumps here in the chat, says fire everybody. Sorry, Zach, they've already fired everybody. Like, there's no one left to fire except for Ryan Poles. They can fire Ryan Poles. I think you still have to look at this offense and what's going on with this team. And tonight's game, again, is just another example of it where Ryan Poles, like, he built a 7-on-7 roster. He had some comments pregame on ESPN Chicago talking about how these issues that we saw starting slow again tonight, where the Bears still just cannot score, do anything besides go 3 and out on the first possession of the game, go back to training camp. Like, we could have told you that. They showed it on Hard Knocks. Like, they showed an entire montage in the first episode about how much Caleb Williams was struggling on the first episode of Hard Knocks. And then you had to fire your offensive coordinator, you had to fire your head coach, and you have Thomas Brown, who has been fired by multiple places, can't get a head coaching job when he's interviewed for them. Like, there's a reason why he's not with the Rams anymore. I would imagine, as much as Sean McVay wants to talk him up, but Ryan Poles is talking about before the game, like, oh, a lot of these issues go back to training camp. Well, no duh. Nothing's gotten better. The fact that, like, the clock management stuff, I don't know. Like, Matt Eberflus, I'm way harder on than Thomas Brown. Like, Thomas Brown is, like, just doesn't really, he's not a head coach. So, like, we talked about it in the first segment. It was not good. But the other one tonight that I thought was really interesting when thinking about this game specifically, and I think you go back to, like, that first couple possessions with Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams, is Kirk Herbstreit made this comment, which he immediately walked back. He said something like about the idea of Caleb Williams being, you know, like, it's questionable if he can be the first one in, last one out, you know, that mantra about football players. And he immediately walked it back, saying that there's no proof of that yet. But I find it odd that you have a guy in Kirk Herbstreit who obviously is, like, very familiar with, like, what's going on in the NFL and college football, with Caleb's time at USC. And then he's in these production meetings this week with the Bears coaching staff and everything. And that's a comment he made in a game. And it's like one of those where it's like, is he speaking because he likes to hear himself speak? Or is he speaking because it's not, you know, it's something that people within the organization are raising a question to? And I would guess it's not, because I think we would have heard about that by now with how leaky the Bears building has been this year. But I do think it goes back to, like I'm saying here, the bigger picture issues of it's week 17. And Caleb still can't recognize when there's certain blitzes in front of them. The clock management stuff at the end of the game, like whether it's Caleb or Thomas Brown or Shane Waldron or Matt Eberflus, like whoever's in charge at the time, it's been a disaster twice. I mean, some of the worst clock management stuff like we've ever seen, honestly, has happened twice now this season. So he can't get on the same page with his wide receivers still. It's all very strange. And, like, I don't think that it is, you know, this idea that, you know, Caleb Williams is not a hard worker. I just find it odd that Kirk would say that, and it's hard to not look at what's going on in the NFL. I mean, going on with the Chicago Bears, and, like, does raise some concerns. Like, I don't see a guy that, you know, but, like, we don't know. And so I just thought that was very strange from all the things that happened in tonight's game. It's just all of it's just a mess of what's going on for the Chicago Bears right now. And from the clock management to not being on the same page with the players, like, that's why they need to make a significant change and an offensive change at head coach. Like, that's why you can't go to a defensive coordinator. Like, I like the idea of Mike Vrabel. It's a fun idea. Like, I think he's gonna be a good coach somewhere else, but, like, it's why he's not the right fit in Chicago. Like, you need someone that's offensive minded, that's going to help just get these guys where they go. Cody says here, did Caleb drop the 2 passes on the first drive? Did Caleb hold on the touchdown pass? No, Cody. That's what we discussed in the first segment, but I'll reiterate my point for you, because I think it's a fair one, and it's totally fair of what the Caleb Williams conversation is. Like, while Caleb has made some throws that are not great, he is not getting any help from his teammates, and that's been a problem all season long. I mean, look, the fact that he made that conversion after the left guard had the false start penalty shows you what he can do. But for that guy to have 2 crucial mistakes in this game while filling in for Tevin Jenkins, who I talked about this last week, like, is not someone that I even want back on the Bears next year, because he's just unreliable to even be on the field. But the drops, everything, like, he has no help. And it's amazing that the roster, to what was said earlier in the chat about fire everyone, like, the roster that was put together, this idea that, like, clearly, you know, you have to have guys that are, you know, like, you're building this roster around Caleb Williams, and it's gone this bad this year. It's just tough. It's been a tough year. I was sick to my stomach when I thought of the idea that they were going to be on Thursday Night Football again. It is what it is. But this loss it's just a long line of losses, and the fact that the Bears have lost 10 games after starting the season 4-2. The other thing I'll push back about from the broadcast tonight, like, we've all watched these games. Does anyone really think that, like, if Tyreek Stevenson's not chirping at fans or whatever and is engaged on the Hail Mary play against Washington, that, like, this season doesn't potentially unravel in the way that it has? Like, maybe unravel more dramatically, and it got Matt Eberflus fired, but this, like, narrative, like, that everyone's trying to push, still the fact that, like, they collapsed so hard after that game that the Bears organization as a whole just like couldn't overcome it. I get it. Like, I get where you're trying to go with and say like that's where everything went off the rails. I agree, but it's not what caused all of these issues. And they pushed it again tonight for what's going on and all the issues that the Bears are facing. Okay, so for the first time in a couple weeks, and really since Matt Eberflus has been fired, and a little bit since before he even got fired, like we started to see Eberflus kind of lose control of the defense. And outside of Charbonnet being a pretty good runner, like I liked him coming out of college. I remember like thinking for like fantasy nerd purposes, it kind of sucked when they drafted him after already having Kenneth Walker. But he was pretty good tonight. But outside of that, like the Bears defense played pretty well tonight. And it is the biggest positive from this game. You lose 6-3. Caleb Williams, it's the roller coaster game as it's been most of the year. But at least the defense, for the first time this season, in a while this season, actually showed up with some heart and tried to do something positive. So we'll get into that next year on the Locked On Bears postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel.
This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Or you can bet on college football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, tennis, soccer, combat sports, you name it, they've got it all at FanDuel. Or you can even place live bets on the NFL as well, all in one place. If you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with your $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, so coming into tonight, the Bears' last 9 games during the 9-game losing streak until tonight, which made it 10. The Bears' defense had given up almost 27 points per game, 404 yards per game, 255 passing yards, 6.5 yards per play. They've been absolutely terrible most this season. Really, like the thing that kept Matt Eberflus' job going into the year started off well, where like when Caleb was in those real rookie struggles, I think the worst he played early on in the year, obviously before Shane Waldron was fired. Like we saw the defense was doing their job, but then in this 9-game losing streak, they've totally unraveled. So the positive for tonight's game, if anything, is that like the term I would use is quit watch. Is that there are guys and on this team that they're thinking about vacation, they're thinking about the offseason. I don't blame them. This season sucks to watch. I can't imagine what it's like to be a player on the team, to be dealing with all the coaching changes, to know you have another change coming, potentially more changes if the GM gets fired. The guy who like they've praised has been up and down. We had those weird rumors about veterans wanting to have Caleb benched because Shane Waldron was ruining him all this season, right? It's been strange. It's been bad. But at least the defense tonight showed up in a much better way. The biggest positive from that, I think, continues to be TJ Edwards and Kyler Gordon. They to me are those two guys to me are my two favorite players to watch on the Bears. And while Zach Charbonnet like had some success running the ball, like we saw another, Ryan Poles gem, Zach Pickens, be inactive for this game against the Seahawks. So great 3rd-round pick there. But you look at where the defense did, at least like they were positive there. They almost get the interception after letting Charbonnet run all over them down the field the first drive of the game. They nearly pick off Geno Smith. Kyler Gordon gets the peanut punch, which ironically he's sitting next to Roger Goodell. First of all, I can't believe kudos to the refs for letting the play go on. I can't believe they ever thought that was going to be a touchdown though. Also, shout out to the Bears fans, who are there at the game. Good on you guys for being out there. It's only 44 degrees, so it's not the coldest it's been in Chicago for a game. But it's been brutal and to watch this season unfold in the way it has, and watch the defense, which we thought was going to be the strength of this team, still unravel. So to see Kyler Gordon play the way he did, to see Taylor get his first sack of the season since week 1 of the year, to see TJ Edwards continue to play well. Jalen Johnson obviously had a good night tonight, didn't give up any big plays, to a really talented group. Tyreek Stevenson, where if he's still your cup of tea, he's not mine. He drew another, 15-yard penalty on DK Metcalf today, drawing the headbutt. So there are positives there from the defense. So at least that happened. At least there's throws from Caleb in this game that doesn't leave the most sour taste in our mouths. There are always going to be differing. I see Andra, sorry if that's said incorrectly. It says, Caleb sucks. Why is everyone scared to say it? Because I don't think anyone really thinks that. I think there are very few fans that actually believe. They know like what's going wrong with Caleb right now, but like I think sucks is definitely the wrong way to describe it. But the defense was better in this game. So at least that's a positive. Like that's the only positive thing besides a couple throws that they tonight did their job. They set you up in position to win this football game. And I think that's been the story of the Bears season since the very beginning, is that when the defense has been good, the offense didn't carry its weight. When the offense would put you in a position to come back and win a game, the defense or the coaching staff more specifically, or the special teams unit would fail you. A lot of really bad games in between. But the Bears, one thing that they have not been able to do this year, and it's the biggest challenge, I think, for the new head coach, is play any version of complementary football. Whether like that's the run game going with the passing game, the offense going with the defense. Like it's too much of just, not good football as a unit, as a team for the Chicago Bears. And that's how you end up with, what is this, their second 10-game losing streak in 4 years? I'm trying to remember my timelines here at this point. But it's been as bad as it gets for the Bears. And we will, I think, all kind of just, we're ready for next week to be over. We're ready for the offseason to be here, and hopefully the hype doesn't get out of control. Just because Ben Johnson, if he's the head coach, doesn't mean that the Chicago Bears should be predicted to do anything of significance next season until we actually see it with our eyeballs next year. I think that'd be my biggest lesson to Bears fans. It's like, let's hold off on letting the hype train get out of control, bring people back in a little bit, and just try to hope for significant improvements from week one starting next year. Because this season's over. This season's done. They're probably going to end on an 11-game win streak, even though it would be fun to beat the Packers with Caleb Williams if Jordan Love and them play, which I don't know if they will either in next week's game. So that will do it for us here on the Locked On Bears postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. My name's Joe George. Find me on Twitter at Joe George Radio. On TikTok and Instagram is the same. We're here after every single Bears, Bulls, Cubs, and Notre Dame football game. If you're not listening, subscribe to the audio feed. It's just Locked On Bears on audio. Locked On Bears on YouTube. They do a great job every single day, 5 days a week, putting out Bears content, especially as we get here into the coaching search. Definitely a place that you want to be here on the Locked On Sports Podcast Network. So that will do it for us for this episode of the Locked On Bears postcast. We'll be back for our next show. Will be a Bulls postgame show. And then after that, right around the corner, another one as Notre Dame will take on Georgia in the college football playoffs. So thanks for watching today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll be here next season as well, when hopefully times are better for the Chicago Bears. And we'll be back next week for the last game of the season. So that will do it for us. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.